Aztec used boats to travel and to fish. They grew a large amount of food, like peppers, squash, tomatoes, and corn beans. The Aztec also sacrificed 2,000 people per year to make their gods happy.
The Aztec ate a variety of foods, such as corn, beans, squash, chilies, peanuts, and chocolate. Their main source of food was corn. They pretty much lived on corn. One of their techniques were to move to another land to give the other land a break because it gets worn out. If if they found hills on the ground, they will fill it in so they can use it as farming.
The Artaxerxes had a homeland. They called it I don't know how to say it.
All right, this.
The Aztec Native Americans lived in northern Mexico. The Aztec wore lots of colorful clothing. For food, the Aztec would either farm or hunt. A symbol of how the Aztec found their new homeland is the prickly pear cactus. The Aztec Indians believed that in the morning, one of their gods would bring out the sun and chase away the moon for them, and that was the Aztec.
The Aztec did a lot of things for their religion. They had many gods. Quetzalcoatl is the god of the sun and day. Also, there is the god of the night sky. The Aztec had temples they made for animal and human sacrifices to make their gods happy. Prisoners and some Aztecs were killed in the ceremonies.
The Aztecs lived in the Valley of Mexico. They came to the Valley of Mexico in the 1100s. The area was new for the Aztec. Most of the islands in Mexico were very dry, but the island that the Aztec lived in was not dry.
The Aztec group usually grew corn, tamales, and beans. The corn was a major food source for the Aztec group because the corn was a good source for their diets. They made tamales by unwrapping corn husks, beans, and vegetables. Then after they put all of the stuff in the corn husk, they steamed it up and they called it tamales. Beans were also a good food source because it had protein in it.
The Aztec had many gods, but the main gods were the sun and war gods. They thought that if they did not do human sacrifice, the sun would not rise. The Aztec had many wars with different tribes and villages to take their land and people for their sacrifices.
The Aztecs were warlike people. They lived in the country that we all know as Mexico. The capital city was Tenochtitlan. The Aztecs were very good warriors, but they had professions in writing, building, arts, and crafts, etc.
The Lakota used buffalo hides to make teepees so they can live in them. They also lived around the Black Hills of South Dakota. Teepees usually break down quickly, but since they got horses, they built teepees twice that size. Before teepees, the Lakota lived in lodges. To make the teepee, they made sure the buffalo hides were clean. They sewed them together. They used wooden poles to cover the teepee.
The buffalo was and still is important to the Lakota. They need buffalo for many reasons. They need the skin for housing. They also need the meat for food. They also use buffalo for calendars. Buffalo were dried and pounded into pemmican. Did you also know that buffalo were also called bison? In conclusion, buffalo were very important to the Lakota.
Excellent.
The Lakota Sioux wore many different types of clothing, such as long deerskin or elkskin dresses for the women and breech clothes with leggings and buckskin shirts for the men. The Lakota also wore moccasins on their feet and buffalo hide robes in bad weather. In the colonial times, the Lakota adopted European customs such as vests, clothes, dresses, and blanket robes.
The Lakota tribe farmed and hunted. They hunted buffalo, elk, and squirrel. The Lakota tribe hunted buffalo down while riding on a horse. They found it easier to hunt on a horse because the buffalo ran fast and so did the horse. They planted squash, corn, beans, potatoes, and turnips. They traded buffalo for corn and other important vegetables.
The Lakota Sioux lived in teepees, villages, and lodges. A teepee is a tent made out of long sticks covered with animal skins. Men hunt during the summer while women sew or farm. The men usually hunted buffalo, deer, or horses. From those animals they got skin and meat. They ate the meat and used the skin for things like teepees or dolls. Some dolls are made out of horsehair and deer skin.
The Lakota tribe ate many different foods. At first, they were great corn farmers. After they found horses, they didn't farm much anymore and just hunted. They hunted things like deer and antelope, but most importantly, the buffalo. They used its meat for food, its skin for teepees, the bones for tools, and many other things. The women collected chokecherries, fruits, and potatoes. These were the many different varieties of food the Lakota people ate.
The Lakota Sioux tribe is a peaceful tribe, but they can get into fights. First of all, Lakota means friend and Sioux means enemy. Their main food for hunting is buffalo. They never waste any part of it. They live in houses called teepees. It is a triangular house made of sticks, rocks, animal skin, and fur. Therefore, the Lakota Sioux is very interesting.
There is no difference between Dakota and Lakota tribes. The tribe called themselves the Obiji tribe, which means little snakes. Their main food was buffalo and meat. They call themselves little snakes because they hunt buffalo the most. They have teepees that have sticks coming out from it, a lot of sticks.
The Hopis did a snake dance ceremony. Hopi held the ceremony every 2 years near August 20th. The entire ceremony is to worship Hopi ancestors. The Hopi believe that the snakes were their brothers. The Kikshina ceremony is another one of the Hopi ceremonies. The Hopi Kikshinas are spirits who can visit Hopi villages for half of every year.
The Hopi are really good farmers despite living in the desert. In fact, they were among the best farmers in North America. The Hopi used a farming method called dry farming. They watered their crops by building dams and irrigation canals. Also, they used special corn plants with roots long enough to reach the water underground. Every person in the community did a special task. Some planted, some weeded, and some people got pests away.
I am researching about the Hopi tribe. The Hopi's environment had an arid climate. It has steep mesas. Also, it has tall mountains. The Hopi had to adapt to the dry climate. Also, the Hopi makes basketry, kachina dolls, and all sorts of kinds of pottery. The Hopi lived in southwestern Arizona and are related to the Aztec language. Their ancestors are the Anazis.
The Hopi eats different kind of food. They eat different kind of color corn. They have different kind of fruits. They also eat buffalo and pumpkins. They made the food out of pots. The woman only made the food.
They used plates to eat food and also used spoons, forks, and knives.
The Hopi tribe made lots of things. They were mostly known for their pottery. They made plates, vases, pots, and many other things. They were also known for putting on big masks and doing a sort of parade. This is called a Kachina ceremony. That is about the Hopi tribe.
The Hopi Indians ate lots of things. The first of these foods was corn. It was the most common food grown and eaten. They have 24 different varieties, but yellow and blue were the most popular to the Hopi. Squash, beans, pumpkins, and various fruits were eaten and grown. Also, the Hopi men hunted deer and antelope. The women gathered nuts and fruits. They were also excellent farmers. The Hopi Indians had lots of food choices to choose from.
I am studying the Hopi tribe. They believe that Kachina ceremonies help spirits come back for a half a year. The spirits help them grow crops. They taught them how to live peacefully. They handed out small Kachina dolls during the ceremonies that when the dancers danced around to honor the spirits.
The Tlingit tribes are one big tribe because of all the facts I'm going to tell you. First, another name for the Tlingit is the Northwest tribe. Second, the Tlingit lives at the southern Alaska in British Columbia and in the Yukon, Canada. For food, the Tlingit ate fish, deer, mountain goat, birds, berries, and roots. Also, children almost do the exact stuff children do in their present.
The Tlingit lived in Alaska, British Columbia, and the Yukon. They talked in English and in their language. Like they say thank you, it's Gunachik. The Tlingit children helped to hunt and fish, and the men wore breechcloth and the women wore short skirts. The Tlingit used canoes for transportation and loved making totem poles. They value for food as salmon and more fish.
The Tlingit also ate fish caught with harpoons, nets, and bonefish hooks while on canoes. Halibut, herring, cod, and salmon can be cooked in a variety of ways and saved during winter. In addition, seals, clams, shellfish, fish eggs, and berries were also eaten. Some of the people of the Tlingit tribe also ate whales and otters. Since there were a lot of food, they would have enough food to last until the following spring.
The Tlingit made something called totem poles. These poles represented family members or new chiefs. These poles were often 40 to 150 feet tall. They often had images of animals on them. They were also made by highly skilled woodworkers. These poles were very decorative. These people seemed to make almost everything pretty amazing.
Tlingit built large homes. In front of most of them stood a tall, lengthy totem pole. They are tall logs that are carved with many designs. They can be 40 to 60 feet tall. Some were even 100 feet tall. Most of them were built to honor family members or new chiefs. Even everyday objects made by the Tlingit were often as beautiful as they were useful. Almost everything from spoons to blankets to wooden storage boxes was highly decorated.
Tlingit continued to live in areas in Alaska and Canada. They are not restricted to reservations. They are united. Also, the Tlingit Indians are usually from the Pacific Northwest.
The wet climate of the northwest coast enabled the Tlingit tribe to grow a rich variety of plants. The forest was home to many different forest animals. The Tlingit ate foods such as berries, deer, elk, beavers,
bears, and fish. But their main food was salmon. Every year, the clinging to the salmon run, men and women would set aside their daily tasks to go to the river and catch the plentiful fish. During the salmon run, a family could catch over 1,000 pounds of fish.
The Iroquois eat many things, but their main source of food is animals. They also ate plants such as raspberries and ate all plants around them. But the things the women cook are either rice, beans, or squash, and the men hunt and fish for food.
The Iroquois' environment is filled with trees, animals, plants, rivers, and lakes. The animals and plants that surround them were an important part of their lifestyle. They used deer antlers for arrowheads and knives. They used tree bark for soup bowls and rope. They also used maple trees for sugar. They lived in the northwest, what is now New York.
The Iroquois tribe traveled by two ways. One was by foot and one was by a wooden canoe. In the canoes, they would row with paddles or oars. This was a very important way to get through oceans and water-like areas. Also, the Iroquois tribe was smart because there were no planes, helicopters, or even boats back then. You were to have to build everything: shelter, transportation, and resources.
Do you want to know what the Iroquois used from their environment? The Iroquois used soil for planting. Their longhouses used wood frames covered with bark. They also used deerskin for clothes, shoes, and blankets. They even used bones for tools. Finally, they also used tendons for sewing. That is what the Iroquois used from their environment.
The Iroquois lived in longhouses. Traditionally, they were round. The Iroquois built these homes using wood and tree bark. These houses could fit many families inside. They were sturdy, big, and they had good posture. Usually, the women would build the longhouses, and most of the time, the men were hunting. They kept holes in the top of their houses, so the smoke inside their houses would come out. Today, we still
The Iroquois made many tools used for different things. They made axes, hoes, clubs, and bow and arrows. They used these things to hunt and fight other tribes. They may also use hoes and spades for farming. They may also use tree bark for containers.
The Iroquois homes were one of the popular in their time. They were called longhouses. They supported about 20 families and even a bit more. To make a longhouse, the Iroquois bend poles made from sewing bark to make frame for their longhouses. They also bent the bark in the middle to make an arc shape for the ceiling. If the bark cracked, it would be repaired with tree sap. In the winter, the longhouses are covered with animal skins to keep them warm. Lastly, each clan had their own longhouse. It would